Okay, so I want to just go over quickly 3 little montages of the speech yesterday and show you exactly how Donald Trump works. And this is, the first part of this is really pretty biblical. The first thing you have to do when you're speaking to a crowd of people that you're trying to convince is you praise them. You let them know, hey, I'm your friend. I respect you. I learned this from Paul on Mars Hill. If you go back and you read Mars Hill, if you go into Romans, and you see him on Mars Hill, and he's talking to the people he's trying to convince, and he's like, hey, man, I've read your poetry. I listen to your songs. You guys are really religious. I just love that. He tells them how much he loves them and how much he admires them. Well, that's how Donald Trump started, believe it or not. That was a very important part of his message that nobody was talking about yesterday, but very important. And I want to show you how many times he said those kinds of things just in his speech yesterday. Cut 1.
The United States cares greatly about the people of Europe. I am derived from Europe, Scotland and Germany, and we believe deeply in the bonds we share with Europe as a civilization. I want to see it do great. But I actually started with Emmanuel, who probably is in the room too, and I like him. I actually like him. Hard to believe, isn't it? I have tremendous respect for both the people of Greenland and the people of Denmark. Tremendous respect. And they have an excellent, by the way, Secretary General who's possibly in the room. Mark, are you here? We want Europe to be strong.
Okay, so he all the way through the speech, those are 8 or 10 different clips. All the way through the speech, he was saying, we respect you, we like you, yada, yada. But then he also at the same time was reminding them, let's go to cut 3, that America is stronger than ever before. Listen to this.
After 12 months back in the White House, our economy is booming, growth is exploding, productivity is surging, investment is soaring, inflation has been defeated, and the United States is in the midst of the fastest and most dramatic economic turnaround in our country's history. Virtually no inflation and extraordinarily high economic growth. Since the election, the stock market has set 52 all-time high records, adding $9 trillion in value to retirement accounts. People are doing very well. They're very happy with me. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. The USA is the economic engine on the planet. Instead of closing down energy plants, we're opening them up. Instead of building ineffective, money-losing windmills, we're taking them down and not approving any. In July, we passed the largest tax cuts in American history, including no tax on tips. Domestic steel production is up by 300,000 tons a month, and it's doubling over the next 4 months. Under my leadership, U.S. natural gas production is at an all-time high by far. The price of gasoline is now below $2.50 a gallon in many states, and we're leading the world in AI by a lot. Because of my landslide election victory, the United States avoided the catastrophic energy collapse, but the border was out of control. We fixed it with the strongest border anywhere in the world. We're bringing back battleships. The battleship is 100 times more powerful than the great battleships you saw in World War II. We did a lot. I did a lot of big things.
Okay. So, why is this important? First, hey, we're not your enemy. Second, we're very strong economically because he's inviting Europe, and he said this a couple of times in the speech, he's inviting Europe to be a part of it. Okay? Be a part of this. You can be a part of this. We want you to be a part of it. Now, I don't think any of the elites in the room wanted to be a part of that. But as he said a minute ago, Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, he was instrumental, and I want to come back to him in a second in a different way, but I want to show you what he said after the speech, and because it goes to America is stronger than ever. He talked about the GDP of Europe and how Trump is right on things, which didn't make him popular in the room. But this is the NATO Secretary General after the speech commenting on basically what Trump was saying there, inviting Europe. When we do well, you do well. Listen to cut 5, please.
And when it comes to the Arctic, I think President Trump is right. Other leaders in NATO are right. We need to defend the Arctic. We know that the sea lanes are opening up. We know that China and Russia are increasingly active in the Arctic. There are 8 countries bordering on the Arctic. 7 are a member of NATO. That's Finland and Sweden and Norway and Denmark, Iceland, Canada and the US. And there's only 1 country bordering on the Arctic outside NATO, and that's Russia. And I would argue there is a 9th country, which is China, which is increasingly active in the Arctic region. So President Trump and other leaders are right. We have to do more there. We have to protect the Arctic against Russian and Chinese influence. And that's exactly what NATO ambassadors decided to do in September. We are working on that, making sure that collectively we defend the Arctic region.
Okay, so he's talking about the defense of the Arctic region, but just before that, he said, look, Trump is right. Trump is right. Does anyone seriously think that if the United States hadn't turned around and done what they had done under Donald Trump and gone from possible negative GDP a year ago, that's what was being projected, to a GDP of 5.4%, do you think Europe would have a 1.9 or 1.8% GDP? We wouldn't have. Our growth came from the amazing growth in America. And that is the point that Donald Trump was making. We can work together. What's good for us is also good for you. So, first thing, compliment. Second thing, show them that we invite you to be a part of this because it's really, really good. Then he says the tough love. This is how he won yesterday, or is winning. Cut 2, Trump montage 2.
But I also inherited a mess with Ukraine and Russia, something that would have never happened. I said, Vladimir, you're not doing it. He would never have done it. And I've now been working on this war for 1 year, during which time I settled 8 other wars. Until I came along, NATO was only supposed to pay 2% of GDP. But they weren't paying. Most of the countries weren't paying anything. And I got that stopped. I said, that's not fair. We were a powerful force then, but we are a much more powerful force now. After I rebuilt the military in my first term and continue to do so today, we have a budget of $1.5 trillion. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. And we wiped out the Iran nuclear threat like nobody can believe. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. That, Venezuela, taking down Soleimani. And I said, Emmanuel, you're going to have to lift the price of that pill. No, Donald, I will not do that. I said, here's the story, Emmanuel. The answer is you're going to do it. You're going to do it fast. And if you don't, I'm putting a 25% tariff on everything that you sell into the United States and a 100% tariff on your wines and champagnes. And every one of those countries have agreed to do it. I realized that we have many places like that where they're making a fortune because of the United States. Without the United States, they wouldn't be making anything. I realized with that, I don't know, because she was so aggressive. And I realized in that conversation that the United States is keeping the whole world afloat.
Okay. He then also went on a couple of times to say, Maduro wouldn't negotiate, but boy, they negotiated as soon as our troops left, as soon as the shooting stopped. Maybe some of you in this room should consider that. He started to strong arm. However, again, out of respect, he also said, here's cut 4, what he won't do. Listen.
We never got anything. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force where we would be, frankly, unstoppable. But I won't do that. Okay? Now everyone's saying, oh, good. That's probably the biggest statement I made, because people thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force. All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland, where we already had.
So how is it that he continues to win? This is what the world needs to understand. He's written about it in his damn book. How are you not? Do they read in the rest of the world? Do any political leaders actually read? He's using the Overton window. And quite honestly, he is following, I don't think he knows this, but he's following Paul's example. You compliment them. You let them know that you love them. You invite them to participate. You tell them the consequences of what, is going to happen if you don't participate. You invite them in again to participate, and you tell them you love them, and you win. Okay? That's exactly what happened yesterday. And he uses the Overton window. When everybody goes in to negotiate, usually people go in and they ask for what they want. And so they end up getting less than what they want because both sides have to win. To feel good and to have a good relationship, both sides have to win. So you go in and you ask a little more than what you want. He asks for a lot more than what he really wants. He moves the Overton window so far over that you're looking at it going, that's insane. And then when he starts to negotiate, that Overton window comes back about halfway from where you were to where he was. And all of a sudden it looks completely reasonable. That's how Donald Trump does this. This is the greatest political and also business negotiating class I've ever seen. Because it happens over and over and over and over again. And because Donald Trump never bluffs, he doesn't bluff. He'll tell you, you need to get out of there. You need to leave that alone. You need to come to the United States. You need to surrender or leave Venezuela, or we're going to come and get you. He doesn't bluff. We're going to go and strike your nuclear plants if you don't do X, Y, and Z. He doesn't bluff. He does it. Because he doesn't bluff, he makes promises. He never threatens. He makes promises. He made a promise there. I will not use force. I don't need to use force. We keep the whole world afloat. Now, what is the key to what happened yesterday? Because we don't know what the deal is, and I think this is another part of Donald Trump's negotiation tactics. He gets enough consensus in the room, but not necessarily a deal, but he gets enough consensus in the room, and then he comes out and he's like, we got a deal. We got a deal. We're still working out all the details, but we have a deal. That, again, sets expectations up that nobody then really wants to be the one that says, no, wait a minute, we don't have a deal. So I'm not sure how far along this deal is, but we are on the road to a deal, I can tell you that. But what was it? What was the thing that I think he did behind the scenes that I haven't heard anybody talk about? What is the key that made this thing happen lightning fast yesterday? I can guarantee you at some point he met with Mark Rutte, or some of his people met with Mark Rutte. But I would guess that Donald Trump did, and said, Mark, here's the thing. You know and I know. We're both realists. You know and I know. Europe cannot defend itself. NATO is a paper tiger. You don't have the assets. You don't have the money. You can't do it. We're your only hope for security. And I don't want to get nasty about this. But I've asked you guys to step up to the plate, and some of you guys are, and it's been great, but you're still years away from being able to defend yourself. And you know and I know we're the only ones that can defend the Arctic Circle. And we must have this. And he had a polite and normal conversation with a rational guy who gets it, who understands, the military strategy behind Greenland. And I can guarantee you, Donald Trump, or someone said to Mark, a message from the president, Mark, you got to make this happen. You've got to tell them the truth. And I'm not making a threat. I'm making a promise to you. If we don't get Greenland, if this doesn't happen, if we don't find a way so we have control over the things we have to have control over in Greenland, I'm out of NATO. And you won't survive. And I won't say that and embarrass NATO. I won't say it out loud, but I'm telling you that. That is the end game here. We're out of NATO because it's worthless. I can guarantee you that's what happened. Everything in me says that's what happened. And it was Mark, the Secretary General of NATO, that went back to all the leaders and said, you guys are crazy. Stop it. This guy is going to leave NATO. I'm telling you, he will pull out of NATO right now. This is not a big deal. We can make this negotiation happen. Make the deal. That's what happened yesterday. Because it's too obvious what Mark Rutte, his common sense, and he's the NATO Secretary General, it's too clear.